as we wait for members to come in.
The clerk will read the following communication.
The Honorable, the Speaker, House of Representatives. Sir, I write to inform you that I have notified California Governor Jerry Brown of my resignation from the House, effective today, to assume the responsibilities of President, Director, and Chief Executive Officer of the Wilson Woodrow Center for International Scholars. The privilege of representing the people of California's 36th Congressional District for 17 years has been an honor without equal. I look forward to working with you to ensure an orderly transition for my successor. Signed sincerely, Jane Harman, Member of Congress.
Under Clause 5D of Rule 20, the Chair announces to the House that in light of the resignation of the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Harman, the whole number of the House is 433. For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia rise?
Mr. Speaker, I send to the desk a privileged report from the Committee on Rules for filing under the rule.
The clerk will report the title.
Report to accompany House Resolution 115, resolution providing for consideration of the joint resolution, House Joint Resolution 44, making further continuing appropriations for fiscal year 2011 and for other purposes.
Refer to the House calendar and ordered printed. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, proceedings will resume on motion to suspend the rules previously postponed. Votes will be taken in the following order: H.R. 394, H.R. 347, and H.R. 368, in each case by the yeas and nays. The first electronic vote will be conducted as a 15-minute vote. Remaining electronic votes will be conducted as 5-minute votes. The unfinished business is the vote on the motion of the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Smith, to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 394 as amended, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 394, a bill to amend Title 28, United States Code, to clarify the jurisdiction of the federal courts and for other purposes.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill as amended? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This will be a 15-minute vote.
Thank you, sir.
Three votes in this series. The House voting now on a bill that changes jurisdiction rules in legal cases involving foreign citizens. Tomorrow, the House is taking up legislation to keep the federal government funded past this Friday, March 4th, when current funding expires. Here's the latest on that from a Capitol Hill reporter covering that. Patricia Murphy of Politics Daily. House lawmakers are working on another temporary funding measure to keep the government running past Friday. Why do they need another one?
Well, they need another one because they have not come to an agreement with the Senate about how to fund the government for the rest of the year. So rather than coming to a standoff with the Senate that could easily result in a government shutdown, the House is trying now to do just a smaller stopgap resolution that would get the government funded at least for another 2 weeks to give them enough time to debate this with the Senate and to get a longer-term agreement. So they had enough worries about the fact that they may not be able to agree with the Senate on a long-term piece, that they knew they needed to just buy some time. This short-term 2-week CR is what that would do for them.
So what do you think, 2 weeks, will that give the House and Senate leaders enough time to work out an agreement?
You know, it's a little unclear. It looks like the House and Senate can at least agree on how to fund the government for the next 2 weeks. I mean, they're taking baby steps here. They're agreeing on possibly $4 billion in cuts. It looks like the House and Senate leadership are in agreement over what those cuts could be, but those cuts are really the lowest hanging fruit. I mean, it's the few areas of agreement where they might be able to say, yes, we'll cut that, yes, we'll cut that. And every week that it goes on, as the cuts get deeper, the harder it is. It's going to be for them to come to an agreement about just where they should start cutting the size and scope of the government.
How important is the newly elected class of Republican freshmen in the vote on spending for fiscal 2011?
They are crucial. I mean, I've never seen freshmen really play such a huge role in the leadership of the House or Senate. And this is a new class that is coming on, the House Republicans in particular, on a mandate, they believe, of cutting government spending. And so the House leadership, the House Republican leadership, has gone in to make some cuts to the federal government, and the freshmen told them, no, we want you to cut it more. So we're looking at the unusual situation where the House Republican leadership is taking a lot of its cues on this from the freshmen, the people who've been in office for less than 2 months. But these are the people who have kind of the most recent endorsement of the voters. They are the people who came in because they tossed out a lot of the Democrats who were engaging in a lot of very high levels of government spending. And so the GOP leadership is listening to these freshmen very, very carefully, and the freshmen are not really telling them what they want to hear, to be honest with you. So there's a dynamic of tension between the Republican leaders in the House and the freshmen who are pushing the leaders to do more and cut more.
You were there when House Majority Leader Eric Cantor talked with reporters. What did he say about the possibility of a government shutdown?
Well, you know, I asked him, and he wouldn't say what he thought the possibility was. He and Speaker Boehner are in a situation where they don't want to completely take a shutdown off the table, otherwise that gives away all of their leverage, but they also are trying to make it clear that from their point of view, they don't want a government shutdown. They know that in terms of polling, the American people don't particularly want a government shutdown. They certainly saw the lessons in 1995 when the Republicans were blamed for the government shutdown. It really seemed to hurt the Republicans at the time and give President Clinton a lot more momentum for his efforts. So they certainly are trying to walk this line very, very carefully. They know that the politics are very dangerous for them here, but they haven't taken it completely off the table because they want to make sure that they can go into the negotiations with the president and with Senate Democrats, at least still holding some cards in their hands. So they won't take it off the table, but they are saying that that's not what they want to happen.
Patricia Murphy of Politics Daily. I appreciate your time.
I thank you.
House Majority Leader Eric Cantor said today that he expects the Senate to accept the Republican spending bill. Congressional Quarterly writing that if the Senate accedes to the House approach on the short-term bill, Leader Cantor said it would be an endorsement of broader GOP ambitions to reduce discretionary spending for the rest of 2011, the fiscal 2011, by about $60 billion to fiscal 2008 levels. Today, the Treasury Department announced that it froze at least $30 billion in Libyan government assets, and Secretary of State Clinton said the U.S. is sending aid teams to help refugees leaving Libya. After the House is out today, you'll hear about the Libyan situation from the administration and the United Nations. First, from Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, followed by a UN briefing on the humanitarian situation there. Then British Prime Minister David Cameron outlines his government's actions on Libya. Right now, during this vote, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Susan Rice, at the White House briefing today, talking about Libya.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As I mentioned this morning, we have with us today the United States Ambassador to the United Nations, Susan Rice. She was just in a meeting with the President and the UN Secretary General, and I would like her to speak about that meeting, and then she'll take some questions from you, and I'll step aside. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jay. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start by giving you a brief readout of the President's meeting with UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon that just finished a little while ago. As you might expect, a significant portion of that meeting was devoted to discussing the situation in Libya. The UN has played a positive and very important role in efforts to end the bloodshed there and to hold the Gaddafi regime accountable and support the Libyan people. Indeed, in Libya, the United Nations is demonstrating the indispensable role that it can play in advancing our interests and defending our values. We'll come back to Libya in a few minutes, but let me just finish with the brief readout of the President's meeting with the Secretary General. The President and the Secretary General also discussed the situation elsewhere in the Middle East, as well as the situation in Cote d'Ivoire. And with respect to Cote d'Ivoire, they expressed their concern about the escalation of violence there and the need to enable the legitimately elected President Alassane Ouattara to assume responsibility for governing Cote d'Ivoire. They also discussed the historic referendum that recently took place in southern Sudan, where the people overwhelmingly voted for independence. And they discussed the vital work that the UN and the international community have still to do, along with the parties to the Sudanese conflict, to resolve outstanding issues and ensure lasting peace as the South gains its independence in July of this year. The President and the Secretary General also discussed their shared agenda to build on the strengths of the United Nations while pursuing and implementing very important management reforms as well as budgetary discipline. And finally, President Obama reaffirmed the administration's strong belief that the United Nations continues to play a vital role in addressing tough global and transnational threats, and in doing so, its work enhances the safety and well-being of the American people. Now, coming back to Libya, as you know, on Saturday night in New York, the Security Council unanimously adopted Resolution 1970, a tough and binding set of sanctions aimed at stopping the Libyan regime from killing its own people. As you know, from the very beginning of the crisis in Libya, we've been clear that it's vitally important for the international community to speak with one voice, and it has done so with an unusual and important sense of urgency, determination, and unity of purpose. This resolution that we passed had several important components. First, it refers the situation in Libya directly to the International Criminal Court. This is the first time that the Security Council has unanimously voted to refer a case of heinous human rights violations to the ICC. Secondly, it includes a travel ban and an assets freeze on key Libyan leaders. It imposes a complete arms embargo on Libya and mechanisms to enforce it. And finally, it takes new steps against the use of mercenaries by the Libyan government to attack its own people, and it facilitates the delivery of vital humanitarian assistance. These sanctions and accountability mechanisms should make all members of the Libyan regime think about the choice they have before them: violate human rights and be held accountable, or stop the violence and respect the Libyan people's call for change. There's no escaping that critical choice. Meanwhile, all the members of the United Nations Security Council are united in their determination that these sanctions work, and work as swiftly as possible. But the Security Council has not finished its business and will continue to monitor the situation in Libya quite closely. And I'll reiterate what the President said over the weekend. Now is the time for Colonel Gaddafi to step aside to prevent further bloodshed and to allow the Libyan people to have a government that is responsive to their aspirations. I'm happy to take a few of your questions.
I just want to, if I could, I'll call on people, and what I'd like to do is do all questions for Ambassador Rice now, and we can get to other issues after that. So, Darlene, why don't you start?
Thank you. Madam Ambassador, can you update us on the status of the talks for instituting a no-fly zone? How far along are those talks?
Well, as Secretary Clinton said today in Geneva, these talks are underway with our partners in NATO and elsewhere. We have made clear that it is an option that we are considering and considering actively and seriously.
Steve.
Are you prepared to offer material support to the anti-government rebels in Libya?
Well, we are, first of all, in communication with all sorts of elements of Libyan society, civil society, leaders of all sorts, to understand their perspectives and be able to be as supportive as we can of the Libyan people's aspirations for freedom and for justice. It's unclear at this point who will emerge as the critical opposition elements, and we await to see how the opposition will coalesce. And in that context, it's certainly premature, I think, to begin to talk about any kind of military assistance.
Great.
Dr. Rice, thanks for being here. In an interview with several reporters, Muammar Gaddafi said that he's not going anywhere. He's never used force. All my people love me. And he expressed surprise that the United Nations would impose sanctions and implement a travel ban based purely on media reports. I was wondering if you had any response to any of the things he said in the interview.
it sounds just frankly delusional. And when he can laugh in talking to American and international journalists while he is slaughtering his own people, it only underscores how unfit he is to lead and how disconnected he is from reality. It makes all the more important the urgent steps that we have taken over the course of the last week on a national basis, as well as the steps that we've taken collectively through the United Nations and the Security Council. And we're going to continue to keep the pressure on. You've seen reports about the massive quantity of resources, some $30 billion that the Treasury Department has seized since the assets freeze went into effect on Friday. And this in light of the fact that Colonel Gaddafi and his son Saif say they have no resources out there to be seized. They've led a clean and uncorrupt life.
Ambassador, when you talk about Colonel Gaddafi slaughtering his own people, he appeared to be doing that a week or so, even longer. And yet the President stopped short of calling for regime change until this weekend. So why did it take so long for you to call for regime change? The President was saying it's up to the Libyan people. Now you're saying Gaddafi has to go. He's been slaughtering his people for days. Why did it take until this weekend to say he has to go?
Well, first of all, it is up to the Libyan people, and we will continue to be very supportive of their efforts to achieve the universal rights and the freedoms and the opportunity that they are seeking. I think we have been very, very clear about what is right and what is moral in this situation and what has been unacceptable and inexcusable violence. And we have taken very strong and very swift actions to confront that. On Friday, we froze the assets of Libya's leaders, and on Monday, $30 billion, an unprecedented quantity of resources have been seized in just over the last several days. On Saturday, the Security Council, with U.S. and leadership of others, moved at a speed that is, I can tell you from my experience, almost unheard of, to pass unanimously a resolution that not only imposed a travel ban and assets freeze and arms embargo, but referred the situation in Libya for the first time on a unanimous basis to the International Criminal Court. So,
23rd. What changed from February 23rd when the President did not call for regime change?
First of all, the situation has evolved. We have been, as the President has said, focused very urgently on the protection of Americans and ensuring that Americans are safe. But we have also, at the same time, been actively working and planning to enable the swift and decisive response that you've seen forthcoming from the U.S. government.
Bill, there's been some talk about oil embargoes, but does that make any sense now that it appears that most of the oil production is in the hands of rebel forces?
Well, I think from a sanctions point of view, the United Nations has historically, in recent years, moved away from sweeping measures and focused most precisely on targeted measures that go after the leadership of the country and isolate those that are responsible for atrocities. We're in a different world than we were, 15, 20 years ago, and have learned some lessons from regimes like Iraq and elsewhere that didn't have the targeted effect that was desired and was more scattershot. So I think, at least in the context of the Security Council in New York, when we look at sanctions, whether it's on Iran, North Korea, or Libya, we aim first and foremost at targeted measures that go after those that are responsible for violations.
It's not oil.
We have not had active discussions in New York on oil.
Dr. Rice, two questions. One, can you walk us through what the process would be for the United Nations to recognize this sort of opposition in Libya, or recognize maybe the eastern part or that controlled territory, for one? And number two, is there a message in there for the Iranian government, the governments of Bahrain, about how swiftly the UN seemed to respond in this case, and maybe the lack of quickness they responded to the Iranian uprising a year and a half ago?
The question of recognition is a very complicated one, and to recognize or seek a changed government requires a vote of a UN credentials committee, and depending on the murkiness of the situation, that can be more or less complicated. We're dealing now with a request to the Secretary General from Gaddafi to withdraw accreditation for his diplomats in New York who stood up, his perm rep, his deputy perm rep, to the regime and have been very clear in calling for the kinds of measures that the Security Council took on Saturday. It's too soon to say, in all honesty, how issues of credentials and issues of recognition will be sorted out. Unless and until there's an obvious alternative government, it's hard to give credentials to. It depends on how it evolves. Unless and until there's an obvious alternative, it's hard to take from one and give to another because there's not a clear other to whom recognition can be given. Well, I think when what enabled the Security Council to act so swiftly and decisively in this instance was that there was just an egregious and widely reported series of mass killings by security forces on innocents. Not only those protesting, but those who stuck their heads out of windows, going into hospitals reportedly and shooting those dead that had already been wounded, shooting people as they came out of mosques. And all of this, I think, served to galvanize a sense of outrage and determination on the part of the Security Council and the rest of the international community that action had to be taken. And quite unusually, the first calls came from the Arab League and the African Union and subsequently the OIC for this kind of action. And the fact that Libya's own diplomats in New York were urging decisive action, I think, also was an important factor.
You've reiterated the call for Gaddafi to go, and yet the U.S. doesn't have significant contact with the Libyan opposition. If he were to oblige and get on a plane and go, what does the U.S. want to see happen next?
Well, obviously, the United States wants to see a responsible government emerge that respects the will of the Libyan people. There's a serious institution-building challenge that exists in Libya, but in Libya, as elsewhere in the region, we believe there are universal rights that need to be acknowledged and respected, and processes that are determined by the people in each of these different countries that charts a specific course that's suitable to that country. We would be for political transformation in Libya, but our consistent message across the region and indeed across the world is that the people deserve the right to chart their own future in a fashion that is that enables them to express themselves freely, assemble freely, select their leaders, and do so free of violence and intimidation.
Why don't we get one more for Ambassador Rice? Margaret?
Thank you. Ambassador, two questions. With regard to the military question, I know you're saying it's premature to decide whether to commit troops. Is it the U.S.'s position that that would need to be done through a NATO commitment and not through a U.S. military commitment? And then secondly, in the conversations with Ban Ki-moon, is the President discussing more broadly how to do a proactive strategy with the unrest that's sweeping the Middle East, and how do you get ahead of that?
Well, let me come to your second question first. The President and the Secretary General discussed the region broadly, and the international efforts, including those led and coordinated by the United Nations, to be responsive to developments in each of these countries. So, for example, the Secretary General reported that he has sent high-level teams to both Egypt and Tunisia to engage those governments about the process of transition and the political support that the United Nations and the international community might be able to provide in support of those political transitions. With respect to Libya, the Secretary General indicated that he intended to name a senior-level person to coordinate the United Nations humanitarian and political efforts with respect to Libya. That was something that we had encouraged and welcomed. And so there was a real effort discussed and agreed that would help to coordinate and consolidate.
On this vote, the yeas are 402, the nays are 0. 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The unfinished business is on the vote on the motion of the gentleman from California, Mr. Lundgren, to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 347 as amended, on which the yeas and the nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 347, a bill to correct and simplify the drafting of Section 1752 relating to restricted buildings or grounds of Title 18 United States Code.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill as amended? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
This vote on a bill dealing with restricting access to federal buildings. One more vote after this one. A couple of stories from the Associated Press. President Obama's administration said in court papers today that a federal judge in Virginia erred in striking down the centerpiece of its health care law. The administration urged the Fourth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals to reverse the judge's ruling, arguing in a 62-page opening brief that the law's requirement that citizens buy health insurance or pay a penalty starting in 2014 is allowable under the Commerce Clause, a constitutional provision giving Congress power to regulate interstate commerce. At the same time, with about half the states in the nation suing to overturn the new health care law, President Obama is offering to let states unhappy with the law design their own plans. While the current law allows states to do that starting in 2017, President Obama today endorsed a Senate proposal that would allow states to submit their ideas 3 years earlier. President Obama made those remarks before the National Governors Association meeting today in Washington. We'll have that for you on C-SPAN 2 tonight, and right now at cspan.org.
On this vote, the yeas are 399, the nays are 3, two-thirds being in the affirmative. The rules are suspended. The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. The unfinished business is the vote on the motion of the gentleman from California, Mr. Lundgren, to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 368 as amended, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 8, H.R. 368, a bill to amend Title 28 United States Code to clarify and improve certain provisions relating to the removal of litigation against federal officers or agencies to federal courts and for other purposes.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill as amended? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
The last vote of the day on a bill that clarifies that pretrial legal proceedings, such as subpoenas, would be covered when certain civil and criminal cases against federal officials are moved from state courts to federal courts. Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke will be on Capitol Hill tomorrow to report on the state of U.S. monetary policy before the Senate Banking Committee. We'll have that live for you at 10 Eastern on C-SPAN 3. And a reminder that tomorrow the House will consider a Republican plan to continue federal spending on a temporary basis for 2 weeks to give the House and Senate and the White House time to agree on a spending plan for the rest of this budget year. Here's more on that. Patricia Murphy of Politics Daily. House lawmakers are working on another temporary funding measure to keep the government running past Friday. Why do they need another one?
Well, they need another one because they have not come to an agreement with the Senate about how to fund the government for the rest of the year. So rather than coming to a standoff with the Senate that could easily result in a government shutdown, the House is trying now to do just a smaller stopgap resolution that would get the government funded at least for another 2 weeks to give them enough time to debate this with the Senate and to get a longer-term agreement. So they had enough worries about the fact that they may not be able to agree with the Senate on a long-term piece, that they knew they needed to just buy some time. This short-term 2-week CR is what that would do for them.
So what do you think, 2 weeks, will that give the House and Senate leaders enough time to work out an agreement?
You know, it's a little unclear. It looks like the House and Senate can at least agree on how to fund the government for the next 2 weeks. I mean, they're taking baby steps here. They're agreeing on possibly $4 billion in cuts. It looks like the House and Senate leadership are in agreement over what those cuts could be, but those cuts are really the lowest hanging fruit. I mean, it's the few areas of agreement where they might be able to say, yes, we'll cut that, yes, we'll cut that. And every week that it goes on, as the cuts get deeper, the harder it is. It's going to be for them to come to an agreement about just where they should start cutting the size and scope of the government.
How important is the newly elected class of Republican freshmen in the vote on spending for fiscal 2011?
They are crucial. I mean, I've never seen freshmen really play such a huge role in the leadership of the House or Senate. And this is a new class that is coming on, the House Republicans in particular, on a mandate, they believe, of cutting government spending. And so the House leadership, the House Republican leadership, has gone in to make some cuts to the federal government. And the freshmen told them, no, we want you to cut it more. So we're looking at the unusual situation where the House Republican leadership is taking a lot of its cues on this from the freshmen, the people who've been in office for less than 2 months. But these are the people who have kind of the most recent endorsement of the voters. They're the people who came in because they tossed out a lot of the Democrats who were engaging in a lot of very high levels of government spending. And so the GOP leadership is listening to these freshmen very, very carefully, and the freshmen are not really telling them what they want to hear, to be honest with you. So there's a dynamic of tension between the Republican leaders in the House and the freshmen who are pushing the leaders to do more and cut more.
You were there when House Majority Leader Eric Cantor talked with reporters. What did he say about the possibility of a government shutdown?
Well, you know, I asked him, and he wouldn't say what he thought the possibility was. He and Leader Boehner are really in, Speaker Boehner, are in a situation where they don't want to completely take a shutdown off the table, otherwise that gives away all of their leverage, but they also are trying to make it clear that from their point of view, they don't want a government shutdown. They know that in terms of polling, the American people don't particularly want a government shutdown. They certainly saw the lessons in 1995 when the Republicans were blamed for the government shutdown. It really seemed to hurt the Republicans at the time and give President Clinton a lot more momentum for his efforts. So they certainly are trying to walk this line very, very carefully. They know that the politics are very dangerous for them here, but they haven't taken it completely off the table because they want to make sure that they can go into the negotiations with the president and with Senate Democrats at least still holding some cards in their hands. So they won't take it off the table, but they are saying that that's not what they want to happen.
Patricia Murphy of Politics Daily. I appreciate your time.
I thank you.
On this vote, the yeas are 396, the nays are 4, two-thirds being in the affirmative. The rules are suspended. The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Thank you. What purpose does the gentleman from Georgia rise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I ask for unanimous consent that it may be in order at any time on Wednesday, March 9, 2011, for the Speaker to declare a recess, subject to the call of the Chair, for the purpose of receiving in joint meeting the Honourable Julia Gillard, Prime Minister of Australia.
Without objection, so ordered. This will be in order. Members, please take their conversations from the floor. For the House, the following personal requests.
Leaves of absence requested for Mr. Hanna of New York for today and the balance of the week, Mr. Jones of North Carolina for today, and Mr. Young of Florida for today and March 1.
Without objection, the requests are granted. The Chair will entertain requests for 1-minute speeches. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania rise?
Request unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise the consent.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to recognize a man who has served the youth of America in the professional service of the Boy Scouts of America. Ronald Brown currently serves as the Area 6 Director of the Northeast Region Boy Scouts of America. Ron retires on April 1st after an astounding 48 years of service. Ron's BSA career started in 1963 as a district executive in Birmingham, Alabama. He has served as a field director, camping director, director of support services, director of field services, scout executive, and area director. Ron's service has led him from Alabama to posts in Texas, Illinois, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and even Germany. Ron received his Bachelor of Arts degree in mathematics from Miles College in Birmingham, Alabama. He has been a frequent staff member, an instructor at jamborees, camp schools, and numerous other BSA training events. Ron Brown has served the youth of this nation through the Boy Scouts of America with great distinction. I wish Ron and his wife Ann all the best in retirement. Well done, Scouter.
The gentleman yields back his time. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Florida rise? Without objection. The gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. I rise today very disappointed with the governor of the state of Florida, Rick Scott. Last week, the governor told the Transportation Secretary LaHood that the state of Florida could do without the $2.5 billion in federal highway funds for rail. This money posed no risk to the people of Florida and would create over 60,000 jobs for Floridians. Unfortunately, Governor seemed to be much more interested in politics than creating jobs or improving the transportation system for the great people of Florida. Turning down high-speed rail funds would do nothing to bring down Florida's 12% unemployment and in some areas 15%. Indeed, the high-speed rail plan for Florida serves as a true example of a successful public-private partnership, and the DOT statistics show that for every $1 billion we spend in rail, it generates 42,000 permanent jobs.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Minnesota rise? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I rise to congratulate Minnesota's 2011 2A State Girls Hockey Champions, the Minnetonka Skippers. In their first ever tournament appearance, the Skippers skated to victory with an impressive 3-2 victory win over the Edina Hornets. Now, after nearly 3 periods of nail-biting action, with 39.6 seconds left on the clock, Amy Peterson scored her second goal of the game, solidifying their place in Minnesota-Minnetonka hockey history. Under the direction of head coach Eric Johnson, the Skippers ended their season with a remarkable 29 wins, 1 loss, and 1 tie. The message on the team's T-shirt says it best: all out, all game, all season, all it takes, all you've got. The Minnetonka girls hockey team gave it their all season. Their talent, dedication, and passion truly makes the Minnetonka girls hockey team champions. Congratulations, Skippers.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee rise?
Address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today is the last day of Black History Month, a month when we reflect back on African Americans who've contributed so much to our country and our world. One man whose life encapsulates the African American struggle was Thurgood Marshall. And George Stevens produced a play called Thurgood at the Kennedy Center. The play has been put to film on HBO. I think it's still available on HBO, at least on demand. It's a story of a man who was committed to justice. Through the NAACP, he argued Brown versus Board of Education, the most significant civil rights case and maybe the most significant Supreme Court case of all time. He became the first African-American Solicitor General in this country and the first African-American Supreme Court Justice, and served honorably on that court. He was a man that never forgot where he came from, his responsibility and duty to see that he carried on justice and the fights that he carried with him as an attorney on the court, and to see that social justice in America became the country that was promised in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, but had not become except through Supreme Court rulings. Thank God for Thurgood Marshall. I urge everybody to watch George Stevens' production on HBO and learn about this great man's life. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Request permission to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, we have come to the end of a long chapter in American history. The lone U.S. survivor of World War I, Frank Buckles, has died at the incredible age of 110. At 16, Frank Buckles lied about his age so he could join the Army in 1917 and go over there to fight for the cause of America. He drove an ambulance in World War I in Europe. And during World War II, Buckles was captured by the Japanese in the Philippines and held as a prisoner of war for 3 years. And until recently, Buckles continued to drive his tractor on his farm in West Virginia. It was Buckles' passion to have a memorial built on the Capitol Mall to honor all those doughboys that served in the Great World War I. We have memorials for the other 3 major wars of the last century, but not one for World War I. I met Corporal Buckles when we introduced this legislation that is named in his honor. It is time we build such a memorial, and it's time we also allow Frank Buckles to lie in state in the Capitol Rotunda. History must remember this last patriot of World War I and the 4 million other Americans that served. And that's just the way it is. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Texas seek recognition? Without objection, the gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just last week in Houston, Texas, in a private home called Jackie's Daycare, 7 babies under 3 years old were subjected to a horrific inferno, a fire. As the caretaker or the owner of this child care facility, as the facts unfold that we believe federal funding was involved, first there was a representation that she was in the home and had fainted. But over the last 72 hours, it was determined that she had gone to the grocery store. 4 babies are dead. 2 are in a burn unit, and 1 is fighting for his life in another facility. I am standing here today, my voice can be heard, to first of all say how many people need daycare and have to subject themselves to these kinds of homes. She was 22, maybe she cared for the children, but right now she has fled the country. I am asking Ms. Tata to return. I'm asking her family members to return so that she can receive justice and so these families can heal. This is not the way to address your responsibility. 4 families are bearing babies who would have had wonderful futures, who simply attempted to work and have a place safe and secure for them to be. Now they are dead. Ms. Tatar, you're 22 years old. Come back to this country and get in line for the justice you deserve. We are coming after you. I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from Minnesota, why does he seek recognition? Very well. Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're now going into the 10th week, having been in Congress in session for many days now. We've actually had 7 weeks where we've actually been in Washington working and another several weeks where we've been at home in our districts working. And we haven't seen one single solitary Republican jobs bill yet. My question is, you know, when are they going to get to the business that people elected them for? I mean, the Republicans ran on a where are the jobs agenda. I remember it ringing in my ears so many weeks ago. And now, here we are 10 weeks in, and they haven't done anything. Mr. Speaker, I was in my district last week talking to people about jobs, talking about unemployment. I was in the workforce center. I was at job sites talking to people, and I'm telling you, people with jobs are nervous and afraid that they might lose them, and people without them are losing hope. They're losing houses. They're losing their lives, really. And I just implore the majority caucus, Mr. Speaker, to get on the question of jobs and stop this Republican no-jobs agenda. It's time to bring some jobs bills to the floor, to heed the call of the American people. Jobs now. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Florida rise? Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to recognize the retirement of Mayor Ray Carroll Armstrong of the city of Plantation, Florida. Mayor Armstrong has nearly 30 years of distinguished public service working on behalf of the residents of Plantation and the South Florida community and we will miss her strong leadership. Since 1999, Ms. Armstrong has served as mayor of Plantation, promoting and fostering small businesses, revitalizing parks and neighborhoods, and generally enriching the local community. As the first female council member in Plantation, a position she held for 16 years, Ray Carroll Armstrong was known for supporting athletic groups and engaging in educational partnerships. Her special ability to work with a broad array of local interests allowed Mayor Armstrong to shepherd the city into the new millennium while maintaining Plantation's close-knit community appeal. Her coalition-building leadership benefited not only the residents of Plantation, but the entire South Florida community. In that spirit, all of South Florida thanks her for her many years of service, and we wish her great success in her future endeavors. Thank you, Ray Carroll. And thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentlewoman yields back. Are there any further requests for one-minute speeches? Further requests? Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 5th, 2011, the gentlewoman from the Virgin Islands, Ms. Christensen, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it's really an honor for me to join my colleagues in the Congressional Black Caucus here this evening to recognize Black History Month and some of the people who have written that history through their life contributions, but also to talk about how the cuts the Republicans are proposing to everything except taxes for the wealthy threatens to take us back decades, if not centuries, to a place where America was not in her finest hour, a time when the poor, the rural, and people of color were denied equal opportunities to education, health care, jobs with decent wages and protections, and the possibility of home ownership. We cannot and must not go back there. I'd like to invite to start this hour with us a leader in his district in South Carolina, a leader of his state, of this Congress, and of this country, the Assistant Minority Leader, Congressman James Clyburn.
I thank the gentlelady for yielding me this time, and I want to thank her for organizing this special order in honor of Black History Month. But I want to take a few minutes to talk about the future. Last December, when faced with the prospect that tax rates for the richest 2% of Americans would rise to where they were in the 1990s, when we balanced the budget and enjoyed unprecedented prosperity, Republicans decided that extending these unnecessary and unaffordable tax cuts was their #1 priority. As we all remember, they held much-needed relief to the middle-class hostage. That relief to the middle class was held hostage, and they got their tax cut for millionaires and billionaires. According to the Joint Committee on Taxation, this tax is adding $39 billion to the deficit this year and will add even more next year. Speaker Bennet has said that our national debt is a moral issue, and I agree with him. We need to act to curb our exploding deficits and mounting debt. But Republicans and Democrats have different approaches to the problem. The Republicans' approach is the irresponsible continuing resolution that was passed by this House 10 days ago. Republicans would cut $600 million from the COPS program and $256 million from the state and local enforcement assistance program, which would make our streets less safe. Republicans would cut $75 million from the Legal Services Corporation, which would deny legal services to the victims of domestic violence. Republicans would cut $53 million from the Food Safety and Inspection Service, which would threaten public health. Republicans would completely eliminate family planning, which would result in more unplanned pregnancies and more abortions. Adding insult to injury, Republicans would cut $758 million from women infants and children, which would deny these mothers and children the nutrition they need to begin life on the right track. Republicans would cut Pell Grants by 15%, which would deny young people the opportunity to get a college education. I could go on, but I think you get my point. The cuts in the Republican continuing resolution are short-sighted, counterproductive, and the wrong way to cut the deficit. And the one community, or the communities, that will suffer the most are minority communities in this country, and that includes the black communities and black students, black mothers, black infants as well. Mark Zandi, the former economic advisor to the McCain campaign, said that these cuts will destroy 700,000 jobs and stall our economic recovery, which would lessen future revenues and further exacerbate the debt problem. And a Goldman Sachs economist warned that the Republican plan could reduce our nation's economic growth by 1.5 to 2% in the second and third quarters of this year. Maybe I should amend my previous statement. The cuts in the Republicans' CR are short-sighted, counterproductive, and may not even cut the deficit. We need a smarter approach. We need an approach of a shared sacrifice, not sacrifice by the most vulnerable. We do need to cut the deficit, but there are different ways to cut the deficit, and I believe the Republicans have chosen the wrong way. Democrats offer a better approach. We cut the deficit by at least $61 billion in such a manner that helps, doesn't hurt struggling Americans, our economy, or our shared future. First, as I mentioned before, we need to get rid of, once and for all, the tax cuts for the richest 2% of Americans. It is too late to save the $39 billion that we wasted this year, but we could save more next year. Next, I think we need to get rid of special tax preferences for oil and gas companies, many of which were instituted by Republicans the last time they were in the majority. This would save $44 billion over the next 10 years. There is no good reason to keep these subsidies in place. The oil companies have said themselves that they don't need them. John Hofmeister, the former CEO of Shell Oil, said on February the 11th, in the midst of sustained high oil prices, it was not an issue for large companies of needing the subsidies to entice us to looking into and producing more oil. Next, Secretary Gates has called for $78 billion in defense cuts over the next 5 years, saying that these funds can be cut without putting national security at risk. We should listen to him. And I want to thank my friend from the Virgin Islands for allowing me to speak here this evening. I do believe that if we focus on these continuing resolutions that we have been debating, we can have a much better future than the history has been for African Americans in this country, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Clyburn. And